Picking up where we left off. So we just talked about taking this kind of blocking in, taking this straight on, head on look, right? Something like that, and slowly rotating it in space and thinking about that process, right? Now that could go, again, like we said, for the cylinder. That could go for our other forms, like our pyramid, our cone, sphere, or cubes. A couple of you guys were asking or having difficulties with the cone. I don't have an example, but I'll show you all the same. If you were to think about, imagine the cone isn't that far off from doing something like the pyramid, or combined with a cylinder, right? The bottom is the same. And you guys all comprehend how to do a cylinder. So, imagine I was going to do a cylinder for a second, right? Narrow, it's a little bit wider, it's really wide, and then it's almost a circle, okay? But instead of doing another round of these, right, instead of doing another round, imagine the pyramid for a second. It's basically just a triangle, okay? If I cut that triangle in half and say like that's kind of the core, right? Whenever I draw and make it into a cone, yeah, and that's still kind of in the center, right? You can kind of imagine that as a three-dimensional shape, right? As I start to rotate it, as this circle gets wider, I'm going to see less of this top of the cone, because you're going to see, for example, say that it's the same thing, right? My hand is the bottom, that's the oval part. This pencil would be the tip, right? As it starts to turn, you see less of the tip and more of my palm until eventually there's no point to be had. So, what I could think about is the same concept here. Maybe this is my pyramid, or excuse me, my cone, right? As I see more of this bottom part, this is going to get smaller. Kind of going back a little bit in space, see a little bit more, goes back even further, until finally there's nothing to be seen. Right? Helps, I can add a little bit of shadow. Okay? Get the idea? Does that make sense as far as the cone goes? Yeah? Okay. All right, so you guys comprehend the concept of rotating something in three-dimensional space, right? Now, what we need to do is combine these concepts, these forms that we have, these three-dimensional forms, be able to combine them and then be able to create some object using that combination. So I could use maybe like, if I wanted to make this pill bottle, for example, I could use blocking in techniques and say, okay, well, I want a cylinder, and on top of that cylinder, I want another cylinder, and kind of keep stacking these objects until it starts to look correct, which this certainly does not. But I can use that same concept, right? So, take for example, this is my object that I'm going to draw, okay? I have one cylinder from here to about here, right? It's another little tiny cylinder here for the neck of the bottle, and then there's another cylinder on top for the cap. Now, I can obviously see there's a little bit of a lip right here, and there's a little bit of a rounded edge on the bottle, but we won't get there yet. First things first, let's put down the cylinders, right? So we'll all draw this bottle right here. Notice and think about, right now where I'm sitting, I can see, if I could see through this bottle, I could see the bottom of the bottle, see a little bit here, but this one right here is almost at eye level. I can almost see a little bit of the top. You can kind of see it there, right? Looking down at it. So I have to be able to think about that as I'm drawing these cylinders. So I'm going to start off with kind of my main cylinder. Drawing that second one for the neck, a little bit smaller this time. Again, imagine you have X-ray vision. You can see right through. And that little bit for the cap, taking into account that I can see the top. Keeping my ovals nice and smooth. So what I end up with, just using cylinders, is kind of the skeletal form of this pill bottle, right? It's at this time that I can start going through and start thinking about the fine details. Okay, well, there's a little tiny, maybe another little tiny cylinder right in here. I can just kind of cut into the one I already have. Right? I got these rounded edges on either side. The best way to think about it, that is just simply taking little spheres, or I could do like a big sphere if it was a really big curve. Just imagine that there's a giant sphere underneath it here, and that'll help give me those nice rounded corners. Same thing on the bottom. Kind of put a giant sphere and use that instead of just guesstimating, instead of just saying like, oh yeah, that should be a curve right there. I can go through and think about the underlying form, the underlying shape that's involved. So just for the sake of argument, so you can see what's going on here, go through and bold this up. Obviously you don't want to do this, but just saying. Nice curvature to it. There's that little lip on the bottom. It comes down a little bit. Give the curvature to the edges. Bring it on down. Bring it on down. Like so. Make sense?